Hey, welcome back to the Therapist Deserve Abundance podcast. I am your host, Dr. TK. And in this episode today, we will be talking about the benefits of graduating clients or customers or coaching clients from your program, and also talking about the difference between terminology of graduation and termination. Let's go ahead and dive in. All right. So, in today's episode, we will be talking about a very important topic, especially as we approach the end of the year. And so, I am a clinical psychologist, and I want to talk to you about the most important factors that you want to take in consideration when a client is close to or about to graduate from services with you, and they are going on their happy way and they are good. So, let's go ahead and dive on in. So, first, let's talk about the words graduation versus termination. These are words that we tend to use, especially the latter in the mental health field. And so when I think about the word termination as a psychologist, it gives me a negative vibe. It actually makes me feel like someone actually got fired, right? It actually makes me feel like someone was snipped, like terminated from their place of employment. And so over time, because I didn't like the way that termination sounded and felt to my clients, I actually implemented the word graduation. And this is a phrase that I've used with all of my therapy clients. I use it with all of my coaching clients so that they can use it with their therapy clients as well, because graduation signifies a celebration. It talks about somebody closing a chapter in their life, but also they're able to move up and out, not just out. So let's talk about why graduation is important. So, number one is the journey. So, when you're working with someone, whether you're a therapist or a coach, or in any other capacity, you are seeing someone blossom right in front of you, right? So, I like to think about it as you are a piece of their puzzle, the puzzle of their life. And sometimes it's hard to say goodbye because sometimes we may, or the person may make us feel like we're it. Tag, you are the whole puzzle. However, at the end of the day, there were pieces of the puzzle present before you came along. And you're still going to be a piece of their puzzle, but you can determine what that piece of the puzzle looks like when you leave. Okay. So, number two is when we think about graduation, I like to look at it as a very healthy form of saying goodbye in a relationship, having closure, allowing the two individuals to have a conversation, allow themselves to be vulnerable, and actually talk about what it feels to now be detached, not meet weekly, monthly, or whatever the frequency is, but allow that time and space for you all to process why it is healthy for you to talk about ending a relationship. And it directly goes into number three, which is it's healthy to have a good goodbye. Modeling is key. Believe it or not, in most relationships, therapeutic, personal, professional, collegial, a lot of people in their background, in terms of historical context and family history, or even maybe friendship histories, they have not had a good goodbye. People just left. Parents just moved their families. People just passed away. Unfortunately, some people are killed, okay, in certain communities. So, the question I have for you is why is it important for you to have a good goodbye? Because if it's important for you to have a good goodbye with people, then it's important for your consumers or clients to have a good goodbye. And you should model what that looks like, which means that you may have to initiate the conversation because it is not an easy one. Okay. So I want to give you a case study example of what it can look like potentially if you need to rev up because you know that maybe a graduation date is coming. Now, this is typically if someone, at least in therapy, we know we're working with them at a school, or we know that we're working with them in a particular program in which we only have a certain amount of sessions. But even in coaching, in my mastermind program, I know that I meet with them for 10 months as a group. For Dope Therapist Academy, we at least meet for 2 months every other week. But bottom line is we meet. Even for a live event, we meet for 2 days, but we get very close during that 40-hour time period. And then we have to say at least goodbye in person. So one case study that comes to mind is a 10-year-old young male. I worked with him in one of the elementary schools that I was doing my practicum internship hours in my doctoral program. I knew a little about his history, and what it seemed like was happening was he kept seeing interns, which unfortunately, when I met him in the fifth grade, it just seemed like, I'm sure to him, that every year he just had to get used to meeting someone else. Now, even though this was part of the way that the system was created, it doesn't make it right, especially psychologically to anyone, right? Same thing in schools with different teachers. Every year, kids have to get used to the new teachers. It is an adjustment period. So, what ended up happening, or I'm going to say what I chose to do, is 30 or 90 days, 3 months before we graduated from services, we created a calendar with one another, meaning we did a countdown like an X every single time we met to see how many sessions we had left. And I did that because of his level of attachment to me. Okay. So it worked out well for the most part, but it definitely allowed him, because he saw that it was getting closer and closer. We were doing play therapy, and it was very clear that on certain days he was very irritated probably with me because of the things that he would do with my character. For example, we're playing little figurines. He decides to hit my character and throw it across the floor. He decided to eject my character out the car and throw it in the house with fire. There's nothing abnormal about what he's doing. What he's showing me, and eventually he was able to articulate it with words, he was very sad that he had to say goodbye. He didn't like it because he said he finally met someone who saw him for him and not his diagnoses. Okay. So saying goodbye is vitally important. Now you may be wondering, okay, well, I'm a business owner. Maybe I'm not even a therapist. How can this look for me? So let's talk about it from a business owner perspective. The mastermind yesterday that I had with my clients, by all means, I'm going to say this as lightly as I can without getting emotional. It was difficult for me to find the words to truly express to them how grateful I am for their presence, for their ability to allow me to push them, to challenge them, and more importantly, for them to see them, for them to become the best version of them. So, unlike a therapy client, we don't have to really do a countdown, but I still do. I would say things like, ooh, we only have 2 months left. We'll start sending emails, countdown time, it's almost graduation. I would even do it indirectly and post it on Instagram and say, man, my clients are about to graduate in less than 30 days. When I started talking about it, that's when it triggered them to say things like, oh my God, the year has gone by so quickly. I can't believe I only have this amount of sessions left. Oh my gosh. Now, why would I initiate that conversation? A business owner is not excluded from being vulnerable. Colleagues are not excluded from being vulnerable if somebody leaves a job. Please initiate the conversation. Allow yourself to feel, whether it's sad if somebody else is leaving, angry, maybe even feeling a little lost. But what I will say that I was very happy to hear is that my clients said that they were good. And the biggest thing that got me was when one of my clients said, do you realize you graduated a whole cohort? Like, I don't know if that was intentional. I don't even think this thing happens in other coaching programs, but you literally graduated every single person. And they said that they are good. What does that mean for me on the receiving end? That means that I made the level of impact that I set out to make in January when they started. When I do therapy, it's no different. It's just through a treatment plan. Okay. So let's wrap up. Okay. When you say goodbye, allow space to allow yourself to feel, allow the other person space to feel the way that they're going to feel. Your feelings may not mirror each other because people deal with these things differently. And if we want to put it in full perspective, some people see it truly as a grief and loss process because you're losing a piece of what was a part of your life for a significant amount of time, even if it was 7 days or 5 years, it doesn't matter. So, healthy graduation is important as long as you got the opportunity to do it. Because in therapy, we know people prematurely terminate, they disappear. Some people leave jobs and disappear. But if you have the opportunity to say goodbye, allow yourself time and space to do it with the person, because you may be giving them the opportunity to have a healthy goodbye because they've never seen it modeled. So I really hope that you've enjoyed this podcast episode. If you're tuning in, of course, on the podcast, please follow it and leave me your biggest takeaway. And of course, to my YouTube community, I really appreciate you. If this is your first time tuning in, I want to say welcome. Check out other videos. I have a mixture of lifestyle abundance and business videos. And then also click that subscribe button because I would love to continue to interact with you. Leave some comments below and let me know what was your biggest takeaway. And I will see you in the next podcast episode. Bye.